wherever you are. Sundays 9 to 10 a.m. only on Radio Al Ansar.
Boom, 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 boom. A little boy went first day at school. He got some crayons and he started to draw. He put colors all over the paper. Colors was what he saw. The teacher said, "What you doing, young man?"
"I'm painting flowers, see?"
"Well, this is not the time for art, young man. And anyway, flowers are green and red. There's a time for everything, young man. A way things should be done. You got to show concern for everyone else. You're not the only one." And she said, "Flowers are red. Green leaves are green. There's no need to see flowers any other way than the way they always have been seen."
Hey, 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 it's Green Thumbs Up Day. Yeah, another Sunday, another green day. Assalamu alaikum. I'm your host and life coach, Rabia Carvalho, and you're tuned in to Radio Al Ansar. You may be joining us on 90.4 FM, or maybe you're joining us on 105.6 in Pietermaritzburg. But to all of you, I say welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so excited to be here with you today. You know, last week felt a little bit odd not being with you, but I'll tell you what happened there was, if you recall, 2 weeks back, we had the great big cannabis show and requests came in to please talk about how to stop smoking in general, not cannabis. But so we did. We had recorded a show many moons ago with Margaret Roberts' daughter, and so we played that for you because that show was all about how to quit smoking, herbs for smoking, etc. And so therefore I wasn't needed. So I wasn't here. But today I am back and I'm so excited to talk to you today because we are still talking weed, but this time we're talking good weeds and bad weeds in the garden. So get ready. Your WhatsApp number, 060 904 1056. And if you want to phone in, please go ahead and do that. The number is 0861 904 904. Now, today we're talking about weeds, how to prevent them. Thank you so much to our brother Buddy Govender before I started. He gave us a lovely lead in and told you all about it, so you know what to expect. And we are talking about weeds. Now, what is a weed? What is a weed? One woman's weed is another woman's wonder. Yes, indeed. Why? Because weeds, what are they? We think of weeds as things that we just chuck out of the garden and they're growing where they shouldn't and they're just useless and they have no value whatsoever. But did you know that is actually not the case? With me this morning on sound, Asfat Fili, good morning. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you?
Alhamdulillah, and yourself?
Alhamdulillah, I'm good. Now, weeds. What do you know about weeds in the garden?
For some gardens, it can be pests, I guess.
Yes.
And I'm sure there are some kind of benefits.
Yes, there are. Now, it's funny you say that because lots of weeds actually are beneficial.
Ooh.
And I kind of think to myself, how did that start? I always thought to myself, how did it start? Some person sitting around a campfire went, "Oh, I wonder what that tastes like." That nom nom noms. That fell into my water. It smells good. Let me drink it. And I'm sure folks got sick and other folks died, kicked the bucket because they smoked or drank stuff they shouldn't.
Is that possible to actually die from weed?
Yes,
poisoning?
it is.
What?
Yes,
So
weeds.
actually...
Yeah. Did you know, for instance, there's this weed that grows wild and it's actually called belladonna. Now, belladonna is, if you use it homeopathically, it's medicine. It reduces fever, it reduces the inflammation, it breaks to break the unbreakable fever. That is belladonna. However, if you eat one of the berries or it falls into your cup of tea, you have a cup of death, unfortunately. You shall wake up dead. Because
the redundancy.
Yes, it is dead. It is dead. It's very bad. And in fact, it's dangerous. It grows quite wild in South Africa as well. And it makes these little berries. And some people look at it, oh, that's nastergal. Because you get something that looks like belladonna. and it's actually nastergal, makes these little black berries that are used for jam. Use the wrong berries, and your jam's a bit poisonous, toxic, kinda
You end
deadly.
up in a jam.
Yeah. Wow. I saw what you did there. Yeah, so today, before we get on to that topic, we're going to be having our much favorite Dr. Carrie Goodwin, who's going to talk to us about weeds. And before we do that, I'm going to give you a recipe because there's so much cabbage out there in the market nowadays. And, cabbages are relatively cheap, but bread is not. So if you want to make your own bread, or if you're low carbing and you want a nice bread that you can make samis and sandwiches and inexpensive, because a lot of these low carb recipes have a lot of cheese in and things. And we are a gardening and natural living show. So if you got chickens, grab an egg. If you got cabbages, grab a cabbage. And here's what you do. It is dead easy. Dead. Don't put belladonna in it. All you need is a cup and a half of shredded cabbage. Shred it, grind it, do what you want with it, but shred it up so it's little pieces. So 1.5 cups of cabbage. Then you want 1 egg. That's all it is. Whisk the two together. Use a whisk and whiskey. What happens is it starts to foam up because the cabbage and the egg have this like reaction. And then you can add your salt and pepper if you want to. If you want to get creative, you can put herbs and spices, but not at this stage. Add the herbs and spices afterwards. So salt and pepper into your cabbage with your egg, whisked up till it's nice and frothy. Put it in the pan. That pan is a little bit greased, of course. Cook it, turn it over, cook it again. But the secret is fagalo frigini. You need to freeze it. Put it in the freezer and let it freeze because you want those molecules to kind of bind together. You don't want your cabbage to fall apart. Otherwise, you've got a cabbage pancake, right? Whenever you're ready to eat it, take it out the freezer, defrost it. You can toast it. You can put it in the oven. You can put it in the pan to warm it up if you want to. Or you can just slice it in half and put in your cold meats, your cheeses, your whatever, and then you have a sami. Ha! And you can actually make these and keep them in the freezer and put, paper between them. So those ladies out there who've got great business minds, go ahead and make them low carbs, gluten free, and there you go. So okonomiyaki, that is the name of that. It's originally from the Far East. And it's good, is nice. So we have got Dr. Carrie Goodwin on the line. We're going to talk to her about what to do to prevent weeds from taking over our gardens and our pot plants. Good morning, Carrie. How are you?
Very good, thanks, and you?
I'm good, thank you. It's a bright and early spring morning. Isn't it wonderful to be in springtime?
Oh, it is fabulous. You can smell it in the air. I think everything is just in bud and then slowly starting to blossom.
Yes.
I love to see all the growth and the freshness and the newness of life that is actually around us at this time.
Oh, yes. I've been working on my greenhouse. And it's been really great. It started off a bit funky though, because I encountered exactly this problem, and that is stuff was growing. But like all kinds of stuff was growing because you put seeds out and the next thing they start growing and you think, is you a seed or are you is a weed? What is are you?
Exactly. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Exactly, right? Even when cabbages come up and you're like, are you friend or are you foe? What shall I do with you? It's
yes. And then you think, oh, you know what? I'll leave it for a while.
Yeah.
I'm sure, because half the time I can't identify which ones are which. And so then I'm like, okay, well, I'll wait for you to grow a little bit bigger, and then I can see your leaves and your definition and how you grow. And then the next thing, it's like a meter tall, and I'm thinking, okay, you are so a weed. And then I wasted all this time letting you grow and using all the resources from the soil.
Yeah, and you've been fertilizing and you've been taking the pesticides away. Oh, man, alive. Yeah, you know what? I got so frustrated with this whole story that I decided, no, this is for the birds, quite literally. I am going to do seed trays and put the seed trays on the beds and plant in the seed trays. And then when they germinated, I planted those in, and I thought, aha, that's a good way to go. Because, of course, I didn't do my no-dig garden beds, which was naughty of me to do. So I thought, let's, with the frustration you're having and I'm having, and they say, let it grow until you separate it. But sometimes it grows and you still don't know what's what. When it comes
Exactly.
Mustard leaves. I mean, you've got mustard leaves and then you've got these weird, funky things growing and you think, is it a thistle? Is it a thistle?
Yeah, I was gonna say, and the gardeners that help me, actually, they've said to me, we're not helping in your garden anymore because you just have weird and wonderful things growing, and so we're not sure which ones to pull out and which ones not to pull out. And then they say you change your mind because actually a weed is just an unwanted plant in your garden.
Yes.
So like at the moment I had a whole lot of indigenous impatiens, which last year I absolutely loved, and I was so grateful that they were all over my garden.
Yes.
This year I'm like, no, there's no space for you. You guys need to go.
You got
so
to
now,
go.
although my garden is covered with them and they look beautiful, they're like, I'm out of here. You guys are going into my compost heap.
Yes. I'm going to ask our sound engineer here to keep an eye on our WhatsApp lines here, because I see that there were some messages that came in. For the listeners, 060-904-1056. That's our WhatsApp line. And if you want to call and phone in and talk to us, of course, 0861-904-904. Now, let's get right into it. How do we, apart from doing what I did, which is, plant them into seed trays, let them grow, then you know what you've got, and then you can pop them into the ground in the right place. Give us some tips. Carrie, help us.
Okay, so actually one of the best ways to prevent weeds or unwanted plants coming up in your garden, and I was going to say, it's not if you plant in from seed, it's if you plant in from seedlings, or if you've planted something that you've either grown from, like your seed trays, or in a bag, or you bought it from a garden center, is actually to mulch. As soon as you start putting mulch around your plants, then you've got your plant, which is growing so happily, and you've got this lovely mulch around it, which is preventing the unwanted weeds to come through. And whether you're using bark chips as a mulch, or peanut shells, or even gravel, in between your succulents, some people like to put gravel in, or you're actually even using a living mulch like other ground covers or plants, they are fantastic weed deterrents. And I think people forget that because they think, how can I combat a weed with other plants? Or how can I combat a weed by using mulch? But the benefits of mulching, and as I say, whether they're living or non-living, is just out of this world. And so that would definitely be one of the first things that I would go and have a look at, is have you mulched around your plants?
Absolutely. And if you're wondering what to mulch with, I always start the show saying, hey, grab some hay. Use hay. Hay is a great mulcher. And on the subject of the very first tip you've given us, can you believe it's already time for an ad break? Man alive!
No. We run out of time all the time.
God. No, we're not. We've not out of time. We're just taking a quick ad break.
No, that's perfect.
And we're going to be right back. So, dear listener, please don't go away. Join us right after this.
Feel good food all day, every day. The Al-Ansar Deli, here to tantalize your taste buds. Visit our sit-in deli and try our daily specials at 207 West Road, Overport. Open weekdays 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., Saturdays 8 a.m. to 1 p.m., close on Sundays and public holidays. Call 031-208-1601. Al-Ansar Deli, feel good food.
Sunday Lounge with Salma Kazi Wahab. Latest nasheeds, celebrity artist features.
Assalamu alaikum, this is my Zayn. Habibi ya Muhammad, atayta bis-salam wal-huda Muhammad.
Then, news from the nasheed world. Top 10 Countdown. The Sunday Lounge with Salma Kazi Wahab.
Born into war, caught up in gangs, reformed in jail. Akhi Ayman from the UK, from running the streets to now filling up the masajid, motivating the youth after all he's been through.
And so on and so forth. Man, them are stressed. Man, them are depressed. Why? Because you put everything in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, before Allah.
Coming to you this October is the first ever Akhi Ayman South African tour, brought to you by the Deen team and Al Misbah in conjunction with Ashraful Aid. 10th October in the Western Cape at the venue Aspired Country Manor in Skapkraal. 12th October in Gauteng at the Suleiman Convention Center in Erasmia. And 14th October in Durban at the NMJ Islamic Center in Berea. Book before the 8th October on www.quicket.com.
Welcome to Simplex Radio. Visit our showroom for the full range of car audio. Our TV department carries top brands with quality LED panels, full HD to Ultra HD, and now the experience of Super Ultra HD. Visit our theater rooms and transform your home with brands like Onkyo, Integra, Denon, Boston Acoustics, Yamaha, and more for quality audio visual experience. Now available, full range of home appliances. A one-stop shopping experience. Call 031 306 4029 or Kenilworth Park, 202 Brickfield Road, Overport. Simplex Radio, the name you can trust.
Radio Al Ansar, Durban, 90.4 FM, Peter Maritzburg, 105.6 FM.
Welcome back. You are with Green Thumbs Up on Radio Al Ansar. We're talking to Carrie Goodwin. We just talked about mulching. And Carrie, that was your first tip in terms of managing weeds, mulching. So what else could we do to keep those peskies away?
So the other one that I actually really like, and it's going to sound very simple tips, is actually to spend time in your garden. You know, I like the fact when we sometimes have to use our buckets or we're watering with a watering can, because you're actually looking at the plants. And if you catch the weeds early enough, then you stop them from spreading.
Yes.
So I think that's also something, you know, we forget these little things, and then it becomes a huge, big thing. But if you're spending time in your garden and you're checking out your plants and you enjoying your garden, then you'll notice the weeds quickly. Even if it's like your grass that's going into your flower beds, you know, then you can pull it out quickly, and you don't have to resort always to pesticides or something stronger, a home remedy, those sort of things, because it's a lot of weed management is actual manual labor.
Yes.
That is one of the best ways to control your weeds.
Yes.
And I find also when you see plants, like we were talking at the beginning, is, you know, we're not sure if it's a weed or not. When we see plants growing super well, super fast, and you touch their leaves and they've got that funny pungent smell, the chances are really strong they're a weed. And so, you know, when something grows overnight, just think, oh my goodness, that's not really wanted in my garden.
Yes. Although I'll be honest, that's how I discovered shepherd's purse. I had shepherd's purse grows that, you know, it's a weed, and for the listener at home, it gives these little pods. It's, imagine a short stem. They grow everywhere. Short little stem with these little leaves that look like heart-shaped pods. And shepherd's purse is actually a blood stauncher. So if you've got a wound and all you do is you take some shepherd's purse, stick it in some boiling water, apply the tea that's made into the wound, or you can actually just take the leaves and grind it and put on, and it stops the bleeding. And that's how I discovered shepherd's purse. So, you know, the fact that it's unwanted, anything could be unwanted. So anything could be classified a weed if there's an abundance of it. Now, I've got to take a sideline because we have a topic, but absolutely, folks, message us with questions. And we have a question here from Nazima. Nazima says, Salaam alaikum. Wa alaikum salam. I have a few curry leaf trees. Most of the leaves are turning yellow in color. What can I do to restore the health of the trees? There's a few reasons why it could go yellow. Hey, Carrie?
Yes. Yeah. So normally it's underfed and maybe overwatered. Yeah. Those would have been my two first impressions.
Yes.
You know, give it a really good handful of some food, add, if it's in a pot, add maybe a bit of potting soil, some fertilizer, and then just check if it is in a pot or if it's in your garden that there's drainage. Because if your leaves are going, especially if it's a soft yellow, then it could be that actually the roots are sitting in water and they're kind of drowning.
Yeah.
And you just need to go. You know, one of the best tools that I have in my garden tool shed is the back of a broom. And I use my back of the broom to make holes, to check if there is water, you know, sitting, like what my soil looks like, because we can't really see under the ground. And there's a whole world of wealth, I want to say, happening below our soil. And that's what's actually affecting what's happening above the soil. So, to me, kind of doing a soil profile, and we used to be able to do it with straws when you could still get plastic straws, which I would never advocate for now, but they always used to give us a good idea of what a soil profile would look like. Now I kind of use a broom and see, where your water's sitting. Does the broom come out wet or dry? That type of thing.
When it comes to curry leaves, also you should check, Nazima, just check if it's getting enough sunshine, because curry leaves like to be out in the sun, and if they're not getting enough light, then you're not getting a lot of photosynthesis, and so they're short on the nitrogen also. So you've got your nitrogen shortage. Make sure you've got enough nitrogen in there. So you've given it a feeding. How do you add nitrogen? People may not know. Well, if you've got some grass clippings, take like a half a cup of grass clippings and weeds that you've pulled out, stick it into a liquidizer with 2 liters of water, and there you go. There you have a nitrogen feeder for your plant. You can just pour it into the soil. So also make sure when you look in the soil that there's no like caterpillars and grubs and things that are eating at your plant. And then look for, as Carrie was saying, sometimes, it's the uptake of nutrition to the plants. If there is no nutrition, or if there's something preventing the uptake of nutrition, like fungi. And this is why I love neem spray. I make my own neem spray, 2 tablespoons of neem oil, 2 tablespoons of sunlight or whichever other dishwash liquid, to 2 liters of water. Give it a good shake and then count to 10 as you watch it. If the oil rises to the surface within the count of 10, add another tablespoon of sunlight dishwash liquid. If not, then you're good to go. Spray it, and that should get rid of the fungi. If you see that there is like bits on the stem that are looking like they're rotting a little bit, that fungi, you can also take either some 3% peroxide or that rubbing alcohol that you use for your hands at 95% alcohol, and rub it on that spot to kill that fungus in situ, as they say.
Oh my goodness. Sounds quite hectic when you recommend the hydrogen peroxide.
And yet,
I thought it was used just to make our hair blonde.
No, and did you know? But you know the interesting thing about 3% hydrogen peroxide, which is 10 volume, it's actually got an excellent uptake in plants as well as in the bodies. And I learned about hydrogen peroxide on plants years ago when I started looking into the fungi that attack cannabis plants, and that's where I discovered hydrogen peroxide and its use in plants, where you can actually put hydrogen peroxide into water, pour it into the soil where you get root rot, and it kills the root rot. How's that for you?
That's incredible, because on a commercial level, it's very difficult to find any product that would successfully get rid of root rot. On a grower's level, there's plenty of products that the growers can use, but they're not readily available on a commercial level. So we always telling our customers, look after your soil, make sure your soil is healthy, to try and prevent the root rot ever coming in the first place.
For sure.
But now you've got a wonderful curative way of looking after it. So thank you so much.
You're
I love
very
it.
welcome. And it's not expensive. In fact, on a side note, I know that in the olden days, people used to drink 3%. Please, folks, don't go and drink hydrogen peroxide. But I'm saying people used to drink, you got to always give the disclaimer, folks. Don't do it. Don't do it. Because common sense, she's not common.
Exactly.
But yes, they used to drink hydrogen peroxide. I still use hydrogen peroxide as a mouth gargle if I get any mouth ulcers or issues like that. Overnight, Gonskis. Hydrogen peroxide, 3%, 10% volume. I also use it for whitening of teeth. But anyway, I'm getting so sidetracked. Let's get back to weeds. Let's focus. Yes. So then there's the no-dig method, right? If you're going to actually grow stuff. Can you give us a quick summary how that no-dig works?
So you don't want to disturb the different layers of within the soil because of all the microorganisms that are living there. So some people, when they say no dig, it's not literally no dig. You can sometimes disturb the top 5 centimeters because that one is still, I want to say, not as active. There's not as much, I don't want to say microorganisms, but bacteria, nematodes and everything, they tend to go a little bit deeper. We're talking about, they all come deeper down. When the beetles are laying their eggs, it's often deeper down into the soil. So, because some people then say, how do we plant? And you still obviously can sometimes, when you're planting, you'll naturally disturb the soil, but you don't go as, and we had a customer yesterday who said, you can't believe these landscapers, they just come in and then they just turn over the soil and it makes them feel that they've done their job.
Yeah.
But by turning over, or even if you go a little bit deeper, is actually all you're doing is aerating the soil, but propagating the seeds.
Yes.
And the seeds are just becoming alive and they're saying, oh, thank you for loosening the soil. This feels so comfy. Let me establish my roots and start growing.
And you're messing with the biome.
Yes, and so you've disturbed all the positiveness that sits in the soil. And then, as I say, the weeds are thinking, oh, fantastic. And your plants are saying, oh, no, you've disturbed my roots. What have you done? Just let me settle. And so I think that's where the no dig comes in, is to try and remember that your plant's roots actually don't want to be disturbed. And there's a whole life habitat niche of what's going on in the soil around your plant roots.
Yes.
And so that's why you don't go and dig around your plants, because that just definitely produces lots of weeds. You can see it straight away.
For sure,
you dig around and then the next thing, it's 1 week later and you can see, oh, sure, I didn't know I planted this, and this, I didn't know this. Where did this come from? And in the garden center, we just blame it on the birds.
Yes,
we're like,
of course.
Oh, goodness, you must have had lots of birds come and drop off seeds in your garden.
And birds are a bit of an issue with the seeds that you've got that are good seeds. They'll take your good seeds and they'll leave the weeds in there. Do you know which weed is particularly irritating? And it is an irritation. The word is an irritation. It is those freaking little clovers. I swear, those little clovers, those tiny little ones. I don't mean the nice, pretty violas. Those ones that look like they got peanuts at the bottom, like they're carrying these little balikis at the bottom.
Yes.
And you pull them out, and the next day, they're there again. And you're like, but I just annihilated you. What are you doing here? So, those ones are difficult. And when removing those weeds, which is another thing for weed care, is to, although you don't want to disturb much of the soil, you do want to perhaps use a weeding fork to get right down to the bottom, get to the base of the problem. It's all about the base, pull it out from the bottom.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with those ones, and you, as you say, you don't actually realize that when you just pull out the weed from the top, most of the time, the weeds are so well established within the soil of the plant that you're just breaking off their top leaves. You've left the roots behind. You've left their food source behind. So naturally, they're going to come back within a week or two.
And they come back with a vengeance.
Because I think then they're like, hey, what did you try to do to us?
Yeah, it's like cutting your hair and it grows back stronger. You remove a portion of the weed and it's like, hey, baby, we're here.
Yeah, exactly. So we have a problem up here, especially with onion weed. And I remember one customer, she says, my gardener, he just can't take out enough of the onion weed. It was in a flower bed. And she says, I think somebody planted it instead of wild garlic. They thought that the onion weed was wild garlic.
Oh dear.
And that's particularly bad to get rid of. And the only way to get rid of that one is actually, and you can't even go and put a pesticide down like a good herbicide weed killer, because it still doesn't often go down. You almost have to paint the weed killer onto the roots, onto the leaves, and then that gets absorbed by the plant. So you're not disturbing the soil or anything, and you're being very meticulous and painting it onto the weed. And then while the weed is actively growing, because that's also half the point of when you're trying to use herbicides on weeds, is if the weeds actually have to be actively growing, then the herbicides will work, because they'll be absorbed into the plant. Once they're in the plant, then it almost looks like the weed's on steroids, and you're thinking, oh my goodness, I fertilized it instead of trying to get rid of it. The weed then is absorbing all those pesticides or poisons, and it kind of grows a little bit bigger, and then it collapses and dies. But at that time, some people are so deceived, and they're like, oh, what did I do? And you just have to give it that chance for the pesticide to actually work.
Wow.
And then you'll see you will be able to get rid of it. But when you are using herbicides in your garden, remember that they are trying to get rid of something that's living.
Yes.
So use them very specifically. Use them. I love the idea of using it with like a paintbrush, or so you're only killing the weeds. You're not killing everything else around it. You're not damaging the soil or polluting the environment.
Yeah.
Because weeds are a big thing in our garden, and there's a lot of unwanted plants. When customers come and tell us, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, shame.
Carrie, that is all we have time for today. Please give our listeners your contact details should they want some information from you, because I know you're an expert in all things gardening. So Dr. Carrie Goodwin, that's Dr. Carrie Goodwin for a reason in terms of gardening. She is the doctor of gardening. Why don't you just give out your details if anyone needs more info?
Can I give you my email address and
Yes,
cell phone number? Is that okay?
That'll be great.
Okay. So my email address is Carrie, Cary, at colourfulgroup.co.za.
Yep.
And my mobile number is 082 781 2710.
Well, Carrie at Colourful Group, thank you so much for being on the show this morning. It was great to have you once again.
Lovely chatting to you.
And I'm going to chat to you again very soon. Once a month, she's on the show. So look out for Dr. Carrie Goodwin. She will join us next time. So apart from that, folks, that is it with Dr. Carrie Goodwin. We've got a message in from Rihanna Limalia. She says, Assalamu alaikum. Wa alaikum salam. I have too much of snails in the garden, eating on the succulent and rose plants. How can I get rid of them? Thank you for a good show. Well, wa alaikum salam. First of all, how to get rid of snails. A couple of things you can do. Now, a lot of people will say, put some salt in. Please don't put salt in because salt will kill your plants. If you're going to use salt, try to go with a coarse salt and try to put it on the outside of your garden bed. So as the snails are crawling in, they crawl over it and whoops, gone, they dead. Why? Because they soak up the salt. The salt gets rid, basically they leak out all the water, they dehydrate. So that's one thing you can do. But it's not always possible, especially if it's in your roses and things. You don't want to put salt in there. So what you can do is you can take some crushed, dried eggshells. I keep all my eggshells in a little basket, dry them out completely. Make sure you take that membrane out from the inside, and then you can crush them, because as snails move over them, it cuts them. Then the other thing you do, which is my favorite and it works very, very well, is a two-way. You'll take anything that's flat, whether it's a flat piece of hard plastic, like the lid of a ice cream tub, for instance, or whether it's a tile, and you lay them kind of at an angle against your garden bed. Then you go there early in the morning, lift it up, collect the snails, and put them into your compost heap. The other thing you can do that works exceptionally well is drink them to death. In other words, you get yourself some zero alcohol beer, or you make yourself some beer-like substance. So you'll take a glass of water, you'll take a teaspoon of sugar and a teaspoon of dry yeast. Mix the two together and leave it overnight. Now that you're going to put from the next day on, you take a deep bowl. So just a bowl that's deep enough that the snail will crawl into and not be able to get out of, and you put that liquid in there and put that into your pots or under your rose bushes. And in the morning, you will go there. The snails are going to bomb dive it, drown, and you can collect them and throw them in the compost heap. We have another ad break coming up in a few minutes. But before we do, I wanted to just bring to mind that we were talking about weeds as useless plants. Now, for me, there's a difference between an alien invader, that's a weed that you got to get rid of because it invades the environment, and a weed where it's a plant that is growing in the wrong place. We must understand that weeds are not necessarily bad. For instance, yarrow is one of my top recommended plants. Yarrow is, you get pink, you get white, you get orange. The pink and the white are mostly used for medicinal purposes. That's the one that I've talked about often. It's the plant for women's health. It's the plant for men's health. It's for prostate. It's for menstrual disorders. It's the one you take when you go on Hajj. It regulates the women's menstrual cycles. It helps to heal the prostate. It's an anti-inflammatory for colds, flus, aches and pains. Yarrow. Yet, guess what? Yarrow is classified as a weed because when it grows, it spreads. So for these plants that are beneficial and medicinal, we're going to talk about all of them, or some of them at least, after the break. You can actually dedicate beds to them where they self-sow. So If you've got a no-dig bed, which is a way to stop weeds, you will literally not plant into your garden bed, but lay down a layer of cardboard, lay down a layer of compost, put down a layer of newspaper. Again, potting soil, compost, newspaper. Potting soil, as many layers as you want for as high a bed as you want. And then you plant in that to a degree that's also going to reduce the weeds. If you've got a bed like that, you can dedicate some of those beds to these medicinal weeds. And we're going to talk about them right after the break. Brother Asfath, take us to the ads.
Radio Al-Ansar, 24/7, 365.
Urban Women with me, Razia Rangwich, is turning 4 and we're celebrating in style. Join us for a morning of fun and an unforgettable live show, lunch, and what's a celebration without cake? Stand a chance to win an air fryer, and we have many other amazing prizes and surprises just for you. Don't miss the excitement. It's all happening on Thursday, 31st October at the Al-Ansar Conference Center from 10 a.m. to 12. Tickets are 100 Rand, available from the Al-Ansar shop. Hurry, space is limited to just 50 ladies only.
Come get our butcher's best for less at Checkers Foods Cowie Park. Enjoy certified halal butchery products like Chabot Wurst Thick, $79.99 per kg. Extra lean beef mince, just $109.99 per kilo. Steakhouse Classic Beef Porterhouse Steak, just 13 Rand per 100 grams and 39 Rand per 300 grams. Deals valid from Monday, October 7th until Sunday, October 20th. Only at Checkers Foods Cowie Park. Now certified by the NIHT, the National Independent Halal Trust, across our butchery, bakery, and deli.
As promised at last year's Durban Summer Cirque, part of our profits will go to making a real difference in our community. The Al-Ansar Foundation proudly completed its first borehole for the community of Redcliffe. With water shortages affecting many, our mission is clear. Let's bring clean water to more areas in need. Join us in making an impact. Call Outreach on 031-208-1601 or visit alansar.org.za to help build more boreholes and transform lives. If somebody gave you 500 Rand now, what would you do with it?
I'd actually buy groceries.
Buy myself a cologne.
Probably full fuel, petrol.
If somebody gave you 500 Rand now, what would you do with it?
Online shopping.
Honestly, I would get groceries for the family as well.
If somebody gave you 500 Rand now, what would you do with it?
I would feed my kids.
That would contribute towards my lights and water bill.
I'd put petrol in my car.
Online shopping.
Put it towards school fees.
If somebody gave you 500 Rand now, what would you do with it?
I don't know. I have no idea.
You don't have to decide now. Enter the brain squeeze on the breakfast rush. Win, and you can decide later.
Radio Al-Ansar, 24/7, 365.
You're listening to Green Thumbs Up, that gardening and natural living show you didn't know you needed. It's the one where everybody is an expert, but nobody has all the answers. And together we share and we grow in this knowledge. And today is no exception. We've been talking about weeds and how to prevent them, but weeds are also very beneficial. So I know all my sisters out there, all my mothers, all my sisters, all my daughters are out there with their pens and paper, because they always tell me when I meet them, we've got our pens and paper ready. We're waiting for the medicinal stuff. So nature's apothecary, here we are. We are talking about plants that are weeds, that are plants that are medicine. Indeed. And so we said that a weed is an unwanted plant of no value. There is no plant of absolutely no value. So shocker, because somewhere along the line, someone tried some plant to do something. And in fact, that's how cocoa was invented. Asfath, did you know that? Did you know that that's how chocolate came to be? Because these Indians were sitting around a fire, and I mean American Indians in the Amazon, sitting around a fire, American and in the Amazon. My geography is good, eh? Anyway, these blokes were sitting around the fire, chowing the cocoa. Next thing, cocoa beans fall in the fire. This aroma crops up. They see the cocoa beans. They think, oh no, our fruit, we need the seeds. They throw the fruit seeds into the water. But then they sniff the water and they think, that smells good.
Coffee.
Cocoa. That's how it came about.
Yeah. That's very interesting.
And that's how a lot of our medicine, allopathic medicine, obviously has kind of taken the chemical approach. But from the herbal side, we have all these weeds supposedly that are actually plants. So let's get to it. The first one, all of these are native to South Africa. They are indigenous to our gardens. So Asfat, WhatsApp. We've got Fatima Effendi. Assalamu alaikum. She always messages us in the show. Shukran for sharing. You are so welcome. Let's talk about the first one. Saponaria officinalis. Soapwort. Soapwort is one of those plants that you know from the 80s. And at this juncture, I need to ask you all a question. This is a plant from the 80s, okay? This plant is a low-growing ground cover type plant. It's green, and then it gives a little pink flowers, these very light, dusky pink flowers. And it looks a bit scraggly, but the reason it's called saponaria is because it's full of saponins. And so here's the question. Who of you were around in the 80s and remember the TV advert that went, deep, 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 fresh? What was that advert for? Do you remember? The hint is Saponaria officinalis. Now, what did soapwort, Saponaria officialis, what was it used for? Number one, for soap. There's your hint. Number one, for soap. If you take Saponaria and you're in the garden and you want to wash your hands, you don't want to bring your muddy hands indoors, take the plant, rip some leaves, flowers, anything, put it under the tap and rub your hands. It's going to actually foam up like soap. Yep. Not only that, but that same foam can be used on babies' bums when they've got rashes, on skin when you've got pimples. Yes, babies' bums, they get rashes, Ashfaq. They do, because they're sitting in the nappy, in the moisture, and those little bottoms get red, and it's very, very sore for babies. So what you can do is take a couple of those leaves, 2 or 3 leaves is enough, and put them into a cup of water on the stove, but in a big pot, and turn on the heat. It creates a foam. That green foam is what you will use on your face for pimples and acne, especially that kind of really crusty acne that's difficult to get rid of, that sebaceous acne. Put the green foam on. You shall look like the Hulk, but it will dry and it will, over time, so do this in the night, not before you have to go out, because it's going to stain you green. By the morning, it will be gone, and so will all of the redness on babies' bottoms, on faces, acne, and so forth. So soapwort, it's a weed, and people take it out of their garden all the time. Wild garlic, Tulbachia violacea. It is not German. It is the botanic name of the wild garlic. What does it look like? It looks like tall grass that's kind of like a bluish green, and it pops up a little purple flower, almost like your chives, okay, or your garlic chives. This is wild garlic. It's very well known for its medicinal properties, and you can use the wild garlic also added to boiling water to make a wash for your kitchen counters, for your cupboards, for your bathroom counters, to clear away all bugs and bacteria. You can also crush the leaves and add it to water when you are washing clothing instead of all these fabric softeners. You don't want the fabric softeners? Grow some wild garlic. Is your clothes going to smell like garlic? No, it's going to smell herby, herbaceous, and very, very lightly fragranced. If you use the purple flowers, then you can add those. You can also add some lemongrass to the wild garlic and add that water to your final rinse of clothing to soften the clothes and to imbue it with a fragrance. Back in the day, speaking of babies' bottoms, wild garlic was also used as a baby enema, because newborn babies particularly get a lot of constipation because their digestive system hasn't woken up yet. And so in the old days, they used to make a tea from that wild garlic, a very, very, very mild tea. So just one little leaf into a liter of water, and they would bring that to a boil, and they would use that as an enema for babies. Yes. Then we've got African soapberry. Soap again, soap berry. The fruit of the African soap berry, Sapindus saponaria, also contains saponins, which are also used as a soap substitute. Now, you can crush the berries, you can soak them in water, and that creates a soapy solution. And you don't need your soap. Back to the advert. Deep, 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 fresh was Omo. Did you know that, Asfat? This is before you were even born, I think.
Hell no. I did not.
When you must be younger than that, definitely. I mean, yeah, it's before your time. This was the Omo advert. Deep fresh. Yes. There was also an advert for, so if you think of all of these soaps and these shampoos that we use, what do they contain? They contain things like lanolin, to which a lot of people are allergic, and they contain sodium lauryl sulfate, which is what gives it the bubbles and the foaminess. If you look at what that also does, it also gives us cancer. In many cases, yes. So when you go and buy a shampoo, if you buy a shampoo and it's sodium lauryl sulfate free, then they're normally called sulfate-free shampoos, sulfate-free conditioners. Those are better to have because they don't contain these potentially carcinogenic. But if you wanted to, what you could do was you could add some soapwood foam to your shampoo. Add that soapwood foam to your shampoo. It's going to get rid of dandruff. It's going to get rid of any bacteria on your skin. It'll help with things like psoriasis. So you can use soapwood and you can use wild garlic for that purpose. Apply it either adding to your shampoo or after your shampoo. Leave it on and wash it off. The other thing that you can use as a natural cleanser for clothing, you'll never believe it, but she's true, is aloe ferox. That's the bitter aloe. Now, apart from the bitter aloe in South Africa, we have the Cape aloe. And the Cape aloe, with all these different aloes, the Cape aloe has wonderful medicinal benefits as well for wounds and for burns. We know that anything that has that gel-like consistency inside, that is your different forms of aloe. That's your aloe ferox, your aloe arborescens, your Cape aloes, your aloe vera, of course. All of those are great for wound care, for wound healing, for skin ailments. And in each of those, you will find that there is a dark yellow substance as well as the gel. The trick to getting rid of the yellow substance is remove the leaf from the plant, set it aside, and let the yellow stuff ooze out. It just oozes out. And then you can either gather that yellow stuff and dry it, and take a little bit of that in some water to get the tummy working. Or you can use the aloe vera or the aloe gels, cut them into strips, put them in the freezer, use those as suppositories. That will also clean your tummy out. But it's not only going to clean your tummy out and work as a laxative, it's also going to get rid of parasites. So Cape aloe can also be used for that. It is aloe ferox. It's like you can see them along beaches. You know, in the beaches, you see these big aloes that grow and they've got those orange flowers. They look like hot fire pokers.
Oh, yes,
right?
yes,
Those
yes, yes. I
orange.
actually have.
Now, those are the ones I'm talking about. Those are the Cape aloes.
Hmm.
So if you're going to the beach and you see these Cape aloes, you can pull off a leaf and take it home, keep it in the fridge, and you can use it in slices as you go for your skin and as described above. You can obviously apply it to burns, skin irritations for relief. Then we have a plant that is very South African. That's the last one I'm going to talk about today because we're running out of time. And this plant is one of the best plants for stress relief, for anxiety, and for insomnia. It is known as Scaletium. Be cautious with Scaletium because in high doses, it can have psychoactive or hallucinogenic effects. So do not take high doses of Scaletium. A lot of plants have that. A lot of plants are not narcotics, but taken in high doses can have that effect. And one of those is Scaletium. It's known to enhance your mood, to reduce anxiety, to treat depression. You can buy them in a tincture. And if you do use Scaletium tincture, 1 drop is perfectly safe, will have absolutely no psychoactive effects, not going to influence your brain in any way, shape, or form, except to reduce anxiety and help you to get to sleep. So that is Scilitium tortuosum. Hang on. Scilitium tortuosum. Tortuosum. I give you these botanical names not to be fancy, not because I'm fancy, but because when you're looking at these botanical names, you think, oh, I know why it's called that. And it gives you an indication of the family to which they belong, like aloe arborescens, aloe ferox. What are they? They are all forms of aloes. And there are plants out there that look like aloes, may even also have the gel, but they are not aloes. Bulbine or bulbinella can grow like a weed as well. It also treats wounds just like aloe does. Oh, we've got time for just a couple more. So let's talk about some weeds that are considered weeds that can repel mosquitoes and ticks. This is the time of the year when mosquitoes or ticks come out. And lemon balm is another, like Scilitium, also known as Melissa, because its official name is Melissa officinalis. Lemon balm smells like lemon, tastes like a cross between lemon and mint. It is beautifully calming. It is one of those stress-reducing plants that also is anti-aging, literally reverses time on the skin and at a cellular level, and it reverses time taken as a tea or as a syrup. And to make the syrup, you will take a cup of lemon balm. You will put that cup of lemon balm into a cup and a half of honey on the stove, warm it through, and let it simmer. Do not boil honey. So just warm it through slightly, let it simmer slightly, never above 50 degrees centigrade, and then you can strain it and bottle it. The lemon balm planted will keep mosquitoes away, and so will pennyroyal. Pennyroyal, also from the mint family, is a ground cover. It's lovely to grow between rocks and stones and bricks, and if you were to chop some up and lay them out on your kitchen counter or make a tea with them and use that as a wash for your kitchen counter, all those ants that like to come along will stay away. I like to plant pennyroyal on the base of plants as well. Because why? Because it keeps the bugs away, pennyroyal. And the beautiful thing is, as you're walking through your garden or out onto your patio or your veranda and you've got plants and you've got these lovely little mosquito repellent and tick repellent plants at the base, brush your hand along them and have that wonderful fragrance, and it just reconnects you to earth. Another plant that is sometimes regarded as a weed, you will be very, very surprised to know can be regarded as a weed, is lavender. Lavender, because it grows and it clumps and it spreads and it grows really large. It is fragrant, it has purple flowers, but the essential oil of lavender not only will help you to get to sleep, same as lemon balm, same as Scilitium, it's the essential oil that can be used to keep mosquitoes at bay. It also helps to keep wasps at bay, lavender and peppermint together. So basically, what is a weed then? It is a plant that grows in abundance, and so it is actually a blessing. So if you've got these weeds, these big clumps of weeds growing everywhere, bless your neighbors with them. Give them, make them things, make them salts and all of these wonderful things we've given you recipes for. And oops, there goes our time. Sister Salma KW is in the house. She's coming to join us with Sunday Lounge. So don't go away. From me until next week, remember that today is a beautiful day to be happy. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Radio Al Ansar, 24/7, 365.
An informative Islamic global perspective. This is Al Ansar News.
Making news at 10, 2 drivers have been arrested after 11 people died in 2 horrific accidents on the N2 in KwaZulu-Natal and Eastern Cape yesterday.